Lightworkers, welcome to my channel, Bridge to 5D. My name is Elizabeth Kristen. I just wanted to do a quick video on abundance and new earth. So there is a lot of talk in the Lightworker community about a new financial system, whether they're calling it Nesara, Gesara, or quantum financial system, whatever they're referring to it as. So, and again, all I can do is speak from this form's perspective. Human beings are highly psychic and highly intuitive, whether they're aware of it or not. So what you have are a lot of beings sensing the future version of humanity, future versions of themselves, and getting this intuitive hit and asking themselves, why in the future is money completely different? Why does everybody have more than enough? Why is lack and insecurity a thing of the past? And what happens is that intuitive hit gets translated through the ego. And so they come up with this thing called Nesara Gesara, or the quantum financial system. But from this form's perspective, there is no system out there that's coming to financially liberate humanity. It's coming from within. So I'm trying to think how I can explain this. When you're in the fourth dimension, which humanity is in now, the third dimension, the best way I can describe it is rolled up into the fourth dimension. It's not that it collapsed or went away. It's simply no longer available for a physical form to resonate in. So all physical forms now resonate in the fourth dimension. And from this form's perspective, that happened somewhere around the early 1980s. So since the early 1980s, humanity has been in the fourth dimension, working towards the third dimension. Now, when you're in the fourth dimension, it's so clear and obvious what the limiting beliefs are in the third dimension. So in the fourth dimension, you can look at the third dimension and say, it seems almost impossible that humans would project a deity outside of themselves, like a god with an ego that lives in the sky and judges you. And so you'd look at that belief system and see it as something that, was caused by the density of the dimension and how strong the illusion of separation was. Only in the third dimension could you think that you are not a part of God, you are not God, and you are not one with all that is. Now in the fourth dimension, it's clear to see how that's such a limiting belief. But you have the same limiting beliefs in the fourth dimension that you do in the third dimension. They're sort of disguised. They're dressed up to be a bit more intellectual. So in the third dimension, there's a God outside of you judging you and controlling this whole thing. The fourth dimension, you understand you are one with all that is, and you are creating your reality. So in the third dimension, you project a deity outside of yourself. In the fourth dimension, you project divine technology outside of yourself. So the quantum financial system is not out there. It's in here. It's these. So also you see people say that humans were created as a slave race. That makes no sense from this perspective, because any extraterrestrial civilization that would create a humanoid species for a slave race just sign their death warrant. It's pointless, and I'll explain why. Because when you create a humanoid vehicle, vessel, spirit incarnates into it. So if you create a third dimensional vehicle, spirit incarnates into it. From the first breath that being takes, their first step, they will be walking home to source, whether they're doing it consciously or unconsciously. So like in the third dimension, you've got your physical form is resonating in the third dimension. Higher self is in the fifth dimension. And this is the best way I can explain it. Imagine, if you will, that higher self in the fifth dimension is like an enormous magnet. And within the physical form in the third dimension is another piece of that magnet. And they are drawn to one another. So whether you are consciously aware of it or not, you are walking right back home to your fifth dimensional higher self. And so what would happen if an extraterrestrial race attempted to create a humanoid species as a slave race, and why they would be signing their death warrant is it's only a matter of time before they claim their sovereignty and overthrow you. And not only that, you've created an enormous karmic entanglement. So from this form's perspective, it would make no sense at all to even attempt to create humanoid slaves, because it's impossible, and will karmically tie the beings that created the humanoid slaves to the humanoid slaves for eternity until that karma is cleared. So that makes no sense at all. And in fact, and again, all I can do is speak from this form's perspective. That's all anyone can do, is get their vibration as high as they can, have a pure a vessel as possible to channel divine wisdom, and that divine intelligence flows through the form, and you translate it and articulate it as accurately as you can. And that's all anyone can do. So from this form's perspective, it's the exact opposite. The humanoid form on Earth, this iteration of humanity, was not created as a slave race. This was created as an ascension vehicle. And it was specifically created to get this species, this iteration of humanity, to the fifth dimension. And so why am I telling you all that? I'm telling you all that because the technology that humans are projecting out there is not out there. It's within. Just like in the third dimension, there is no God out there. It's within. So what happens is, as you go through the light body process, and what the light body process is it's an integration of physical, emotional, and spiritual body. So that would be the Holy Trinity. So your physical, emotional, and spiritual bodies are all integrated into the form, and the form has the light body process. The physical body, all the toxins and debris in the cell spin out. So if like you're depressed or exhausted or experiencing a lot of fatigue, that's why, because every cell in your body is spinning out all the toxins for as long as you've been here on planet Earth in this form. And the same thing is happening with the emotional body. So if you're dealing with childhood trauma or, alienation, mood swings, things of that nature, are because the same thing that's happening to the physical body, where the toxins and the density are being spun out, the same thing is happening to the emotional body. And so what that process does is allow the spiritual, emotional, and physical body to integrate into one. Now, that is the fifth dimensional form, all three integrated in one, the Holy Trinity. Now, the third dimension, so it's like people say 3D reality, but the world of form is third, fourth, and fifth dimensional. So you're still going to have physical form in the fifth dimension. It will just be an integrated form. And the technology that they're projecting out there is within the form and is activated as part of the light body process. So when that happens and the density from the physical and emotional bodies is cleared out through the light body process, the belief systems that were rooted in lack and insecurity get broken down and disintegrated. Now, when that happens, what you realize is you were always connected to the quantum financial system. That's what Christ was saying when he said, the kingdom of heaven is within. That's what he meant when he said, my Father's house has many mansions. So beings that are looking out there to wait for some sort of sign of worthiness, of like, I can't receive my abundance, my divine inheritance until Nesara, Gesara is enacted out there. I can't live in abundance until something changes out there. And what's going to happen is, if you take that perspective and the perspective of waiting for something to happen out there, you're going to create a lot more of waiting over and over and over. You're just going to continue to look out into the fourth dimension and wait for some divine technology to save you from yourself, because it's your own belief in lack and limitation that's keeping you from realizing and seeing your divine inheritance. The very essence. Okay, so let me see if I can explain this. So describing the vibration of spirit, soul, higher self, who you truly are. One could say It's the vibration of unconditional love. And I'd say that that's a very good translation of the energy. But I would say a more specific translation of the energy would be abundance. The very essence, the very nature of who you are is abundant. Because what creates the abundance you experience in the world of form? Your thoughts. Your thoughts create your reality, made in the image of God. That's what it means. You create the way God creates, through your thoughts. So since you have access to an unlimited number of thoughts, you have access to an unlimited amount of abundance. My favorite quote is from, one of my favorite quotes is from Lester Levinson, a spiritual teacher. I think he was really popular in the 70s and 80s. And he said, if all human beings ever did was think about what they want, it would be all they'd ever get. And I think about that all the time. And so you need not to wait for the quantum financial system for Nesara Gesara. It is within you. It is already activated. The only thing you need to do to experience it and realize it is remove the blocks and limiting beliefs that are clouding your perspective, that show you that you are anything other than abundant, because that is your true nature. Another thing you see is within the fourth dimension, projecting divine technology that's in the form out there is med beds. So you see people really excited about med beds. And again, I can just speak from this form's perspective. The med bed technology is not out there. It's in here. Now, part of the light body process is activating these different seed crystal cells that you have in the form. And they're sort of like receiver crystals where you get downloads from your oversoul and sort of transmissions from higher self, I guess you could say. And so those crystals are activated during the light body process, which everyone on the planet is going through. Light workers are aware they're on the ascension path. They're going through the light body process. Human beings are unaware, are unconscious of the fact that they are walking their ascension path. So I separate where there is not really a separation. I separate and I create one group of beings called light workers and one group of beings called humans. And that's an arbitrary separation, all are one. But sometimes it can be helpful to look at it that way, because light workers I define as the group of people that are consciously walking their ascension path and aware of their light worker nature. Humans are unconsciously walking their ascension path and are unconscious of their light worker nature. Both are walking their ascension path, both are light workers. So see, I'm creating separation, but it can be helpful just to give the mind something to work with. Now, what does a human being have to do in order to go from human to light worker? Just decide. Conscious choice. That's it. Bloop. You're over there. So, where was I going with this? The receiver crystals, the cells. So, during the light body process, those crystals are activated. Now we are going from fourth density carbon-based forms to fifth density crystalline. So what happens when you put carbon under immense pressure? You get crystal, you get diamond. And that sometimes can feel what the light body process is, that you're moving so fast, you feel like you're standing on shifting grounds. You might feel like just when you think that like you get your feet under you, they're wiped out from you again. It's just the ascension and descension cycles are happening so rapidly. So those crystals turn on and your form goes from carbon-based to crystalline. You are literally the crystalline med bed chamber that they are projecting will be technology from out there. So when they're talking about these med beds, I want to look at them and be like, it's you! You're the med bed! And so you're a walking med bed. You're a walking crystalline chamber. And again, no one can predict the future. All anyone can do is translate divine wisdom to the best of their ability through the form that they're in. And the only thing that I can guarantee you is that no matter what information you get From where? It will be distorted. Because when you're taking divine quantum intelligence and bringing it down through the density of form, it's going to get distorted because it has to go through, my experiences, my cellular memory. I have to use words that are in my vocabulary, metaphors and analogies that I understand. And so the only thing I can guarantee you is it will be distorted. So what I would just say is, for most beings on the ascension path, it might be helpful to disregard the messenger altogether. The messenger is irrelevant. Just listen to the message and treat everything like a buffet. Using your own inner wisdom and discernment. I'll take some of that, I'll take some of this, you can have that. And take what works and leave what doesn't. But from this form's perspective, that technology is not out there. It's within you. It's your divine birthright. You have always had access to your own healing capabilities. You have always had access to the kingdom of heaven within. It was simply the belief in lack and the belief in limitation that sort of clouded your ability to perceive and experience it. So I hope that explains, just a different perspective on New Earth and abundance. And, and that's one of the reasons why, these highly psychic, highly energetic, sensitive people were sensing the financial system is going to be completely different. But that information got translated through ego, and they could not accept their own divinity, that technology is embedded in the form. They don't have to be worthy of it. You don't have to wait for it out there. And through the light body process that sort of spins out that cellular debris in the physical body and also spins out those limiting beliefs and lack and insecurity. Through that process, as those stored beliefs and memories are sort of cleared out and integrated, you then can see what Jesus Christ was talking about. The kingdom of heaven has always been within. All right, light workers, Godspeed, star seeds.